Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going over Chapter 5 from The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Pappison. Chapter 5 is continuing along this section of the book where we talk about the lies of not doing the one thing, basically, or the lies they tell you that prevent you from following your one thing. And this is an interesting chapter, multitasking, because I multitask all the time. And I feel like sometimes I do it pretty well. And I do feel like other times it kind of suffers. Let me give you guys a great example and then we'll kick things off. At work, I feel like some jobs I can work and listen to music. And in my current role as a developer, I'll throw on like a podcast or mostly podcasts, not too much music. And I feel like I can do both at the same time, but to be honest with you guys, I feel like my productivity suffers when I do it. I feel like it suffers. I could do it when I was going in part-time at my parents' bakery, physical work, and I could throw on a podcast and listen to it, but I think it's a different nature of work. And when you really need to focus, learn something, do a complex task, I don't think that multitasking works like I thought. Like I don't think it works how I thought I could do it, but I don't think it's possible to do both things effectively. And that's actually the sentiments that Gary Keller harkens in this chapter, and we're going to kick things off here with a study he cites right at the beginning, this Clifford Nass study, who was a professor at Stanford University, and he took 262 students, and he administered a questionnaire to those 262 students, and then from that questionnaire, he divided them into subjects that were either high or low multitaskers. He began with the presumption that frequent multitaskers would perform better. That was his hypothesis. What he found out was that frequent multitasking is a lie. Was not really a thing until the 1960s. And before that, it was used to do things about multiple tasks alternately sharing one resource. But with us, it's simultaneously being shared by one resource. So in it's the same thing. We have our attention bouncing back and forth between two things, but they're never going like at the exact same time. And I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say, oh, okay, you're breathing, you're not really thinking about it, and yeah, that's like autonomic nervous system. Sure, okay, but you're still somewhat thinking about it. It's just in a different part of your brain. And yes, there's a chance that it's probably been automated away, right? But okay, let's not talk about breathing. Let's talk about everyday tasks. And you have to switch back and forth when you're focusing on two different things. And multitaskers often feel like they have to do many things with the time they have. That's the feeling that, me, when I multitask, it's like, oh, I got to do all these things in the time I have. And then I wonder why I have no time. Well, it's because you're doing too many things. I think I've mentioned this before on episodes of Chee-Tash where like the great minds, like the most successful people say no to like 99% of things because they know like, hey, I'm focused on this one thing right now. I can't do all these other things because I'm super focused on this one thing right now. And that's how they're successful. On average, workers are interrupted every 11 minutes. And this kind of made me think about me at my job and how many times I get distracted by Like if I'm doing something and then I get distracted by an email or a Slack message or a meeting pops up, or if I check my phone or I check another website, I check the weather. It's crazy. And you end up spending a third of your day recovering from those distractions. So you get distracted and then you come back to the original task and you have to reorient yourself. And that takes a little bit of time. Like, so when I say reorient, I mean, okay, what was I doing? What was I trying to accomplish? Okay, yeah, I was doing this. Okay, and then you're back on track. And that adds up over a day. And again, Gary continues on. Juggling is just an illusion. Juggling is not multitasking. It's really just task switching. And again, that's where our definition of multitasking comes in, which is wrong, that you're doing things simultaneously. You're just doing things alternately. And you're subtly switching between two multiple tasks, and you end up spending so much time that you don't complete either one because of the switching. And then when you switch, you got to reorient, you got to get back on track, and then, oh my gosh, a distraction, and then you switch again and again instead of just focusing on that one thing. And there's a price to switching. It takes time to start a new task. It takes time to restart the one you quit. Overall, there's a 25 to 100% increase in the time that it takes to complete something when you switch back and forth between that one thing and this other thing over here. So when you're switching and you're multitasking, it's going to take you 25%, at least 25% longer to finish that one particular task, just from switching back and forth to other multiple tasks. Brain channels. Processing of different kinds of data in different parts of the brain. So this is how you can walk and talk at the same time, but you're really not focused on both activities at the same time. There's a foreground and a background. So this is kind of what I was saying earlier with being able to like breathe, talk, look at the screen, change the slides, all the things that I'm doing right now. It's not that you're not thinking about it, you're subtly alternating between them. Some are in the foreground, some are in the background, but you're not focused on all of them at the same time. If you get down to the really nitty-gritty minutia of it, it seems like you're doing everything at once. But really, there's subtle switching going on that you probably don't notice because you've done this for all your life, and you just don't notice that anymore. You're just so used to it. But there's these micro moments where the spotlight of focus shines on each individual thing, but it's moving rapidly between them. And I like how Gary explains focus as a spotlight. When you focus on something, the spotlight shines its light on that one thing. And I like that analogy a lot. And then he goes on to talk about this concept of divided attention. And it really is divided. Divided in that you're not focused on one particular task. Your attention becomes divided amongst everything, and things take longer. You can't effectively focus on two things at the same time. That's Gary's bottom line, main summary from this chapter. If you're going to focus on one thing. And he goes over a couple bullet points here, how multitasking short circuits us. Basically causes us a lot of issues. Well, for one, you pay a price in effectiveness. It takes longer to complete both the tasks, or however many tasks you have on your plate when you're multitasking between them. When you spend more time on one task, it means you are less likely to switch back to the original task. The more time you spend switch to another task, the less likely you are to get back to your original task. And then things just start piling up and piling up from there on your to-do list. Losing time on the reorientation process of switching tasks. We just touched on this, how when you switch back and forth, you have to kind of reorient yourself, get back on track. Hey, what was I doing? Where was I going with this? And that takes time. And then you finally reorient yourself, and then you switch tasks again. Then you got to reorient yourself to that other task. Never-ending process. And it hurts you in the long run. Multitaskers have this distorted sense of time where they think it takes longer to complete things. Multitaskers make more mistakes. And multitaskers end up building this unneeded stress on their life just from the constant switching back and forth. And nothing ever gets done, and then more tasks pile up on your plate, and which causes more stress, and you can see how this just dominoes into a bigger issue, right? We've talked about the compound effect, or like the domino effect, in the introduction to the one thing, but this is like the domino effect in reverse, or the domino effect to your detriment. Yeah, you don't want that. Driven to distraction. This is where Gary talked about driving distracted, and how distracted driving is potentially responsible for this is surprising, for 16% of all traffic fatalities and 500,000 injuries annually. Jeez. And he talked about how a phone conversation could be the same as driving drunk. And I remember there was an episode of Mythbusters, I think, where they did test this out, doing a driving course while on the phone answering questions versus driving while impaired. And I think in the episode they found that, yeah, talking on the cell phone was worse. They scored worse on the road test, on that driving course. So it's crazy how everybody's multitasking, but yet we expect people like surgeons, pilots, police officers, firefighters, military, like some of these jobs out here, we expect them to always be attentive, right? But I multitask at my job sometimes. I mean, I'll admit that. But why is multitasking not tolerated for these other career paths? Why do we even tolerate multitasking? Because in the end, we lose this, and this is from the book, we lose a third of our day to these distractions. Now think about this. A third of the day doesn't sound like that much, but think about if you're doing this day in and day out and how this adds up over the course of your career and the amount of time you lose and where you could be if you weren't as distracted. You put it like that, it's kind of a more dire situation. So to sum things up here, distraction is a natural thing. Don't feel bad when you get distracted. Recognize it. Recognize that multitasking takes its toll, leads to poor choices, unnecessary stress, painful mistakes, longer time to complete things, which leads into, distraction undermines results. When you try to do too many things at once, you end up doing nothing well. And I like there's the one quote in this book, you chase two rabbits, you catch neither of them. Figure out what matters most in the moment and give it your undivided attention. And remember, there's this question that we ask ourselves, what's the one thing that you can do right now that by completing it makes everything else easier? And I will say I am kind of proud. I focused on this video, or completing the PowerPoint and then doing the video, bang, bang, boom. Didn't check my phone. Yeah, sure, I took a small little break. I stared out the window for a second. It's very windy outside, but I wasn't checking around on other websites, didn't check the phone. Maybe I got some water and stuff, but I was focused. And look what happens when you're focused. Guys, that's going to do it for Chapter 5, Multitasking. We're going to be back next time, Chapter 6. Ooh, what are we talking about? A disciplined life. Very interesting. A disciplined life. Another one of the lies they tell you about focusing on your one thing. But that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this far. Check out the other videos on this channel. We just finished 1984. People love the With Winning in Mind series. People really like The Alchemist too. 1980, like I said, 1984 we just finished. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Let me know if you have any questions. Check out my blog post too. I wrote a blog post pertaining to my one thing. That's going to wrap it up. Guys, thank you so much. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care.